I've always had this habit of digging into my phone. Not just the apps everyone uses, but the parts no one talks about, the developer modes, the secret diagnostic screens, the menus with cryptic options buried under layers of settings. Maybe it's a leftover instinct from when I used to jailbreak old phones for extra cash in college. Or maybe it's just a need to feel like I'm in control of something I don't really understand. Last week, I found something that made me wish I'd never poked around at all. It started on a Wednesday night, long after midnight. I was lying in bed, my face lit by the cold glow of my screen, mindlessly scrolling through a Reddit thread about hidden OS features. Someone mentioned a diagnostic dialer code, a string of numbers you punch in like a phone number, except instead of calling someone, it opens up a hidden service menu. I'd done stuff like this before. Normally, it's harmless, battery stats, signal testing, that sort of thing. I tried it. The code was simple, *hashtag 616 hashtag. Nothing happened for a second. I thought maybe it was fake. Then my screen flickered, not the normal smooth transition of opening an app, but a harsh, stuttering jump. For a split second, I thought I saw my home screen, but it was wrong. My wallpaper was gone. Instead, it was just black, like a dead screen. But the icons were still there, faint, jittering like they were behind frosted glass. Then it stabilized. A new menu popped up. At the top, it said, Advanced Visual Diagnostics in a blocky, outdated font. There were a dozen options, most in gibberish, Mode Echo, Spectrum Trace, Overlay Ghost. It looked like half-finished test features, the kind developers leave behind and forget. One option stood out, Spectral Filter Alpha. I don't know why I tapped it. Maybe because it sounded cool. Maybe because I was tired and curious. My screen went black again, then showed my camera view, like the normal camera app, except the colors were off. The blacks looked deeper, and anything bright, my bedside lamp, the reflection off my window glowed like a dying star. At first, I thought it was a broken night vision filter. I pointed the phone around my room. Nothing unusual. My closet door was half open, laundry scattered on the floor, posters peeling off the wall. I was about to turn it off when I noticed something in the corner of my screen, something that wasn't in my room. It looked like a shape, a human shape, standing near my bedroom door. I jerked the phone down. The spot was empty. Just the door, cracked open a few inches into the dark hallway. I raised the phone again. The figure was still there, clearer now. It was a man, tall, bony, wearing what looked like an old suit, the kind my grandfather wore in pictures from the 50s. His face was wrong, smudged, like static underskin. He was facing me, head tilted to the side, but I couldn't see his eyes. I turned off the spectral filter and my camera. The room was empty. My heart was pounding. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there with my phone clutched to my chest, waiting for a sound, a creak, anything. But there was nothing. Just the low hum of the fridge in the kitchen and the tick of the old clock on my dresser. By morning, I convinced myself it was a glitch. An overlay from an old image, maybe, stuck in memory. But I couldn't get the code out of my head. When I went to work, a dead-end IT help desk job, I found myself sneaking the phone out during lunch, punching in the code again. *hashtag 616 hashtag. This time, I didn't have to look hard. As soon as the spectral filter turned on, I saw them, more figures, this time in the break room. One was sitting at a table where no one was. Just a shape, hunched over, head buried in its arms like it was crying. Another was standing by the vending machine, motionless. A third one, the worst, was pressed up against the glass door to the hallway, its hands spread out like it was trying to push through. I flicked the filter off. The break room was normal. Coffee machine humming. Old sandwiches wrapped in plastic. A coworker, Janet, walked in and asked if I'd seen the new shift roster. I could barely answer her. I started seeing them everywhere. In the subway window at night, reflections that didn't match the people sitting beside me. In the grocery store, a figure staring at the rows of frozen food. Once, on the street, I pointed my phone at an empty alley and saw a woman crouched down in the corner, her mouth opening and closing like she was screaming, but no sound came through. I know what you're thinking. It's a filter, it's an effect, it's an overlay. I thought that too. I wanted to prove it. So last night, I invited my friend Luis over. He's a hardware guy paranoid about spyware, always digging into the guts of devices. We sat at my kitchen table, the only light coming from the overhead bulb buzzing like a dying fly. I showed him the code, showed him the setting. He laughed at first, said it was probably an AR test. Then he pointed my phone at himself. Nothing. Just him. No glitch. Try the living room. I said. He panned the camera around. His face went pale. He stopped on my couch. There was a figure sitting there, slumped forward, hands resting limp on its knees. Dude, that's... He didn't finish. He turned off the filter, and the couch was empty. Then he did something I wish he hadn't. He aimed the phone at me. The spectral filter flickered. For a heartbeat, I saw my own face on the screen, and something behind me. A shape, blurry, its hands draped over my shoulders like it was leaning in. Its mouth near my ear. Luis lowered the phone, eyes wide. You've got to turn that thing off, man. That's not right. I tried. I swear I tried. But I couldn't resist. It's like the setting is alive. I close it, and somehow, it turns itself back on. Notifications pop up. Spectral filter, active. My battery drains faster than it should. Sometimes, when I check my camera roll, there are photos I didn't take, screenshots of places I've been. And always, in the background, someone I didn't see. Now, when I look at the phone screen, I see them even when the filter's off. Just for a blink. Standing behind strangers. Watching me from corners. And sometimes, I think they're getting closer. I didn't go to work the next day. I called in sick, though I doubt they cared. I spent the whole morning sitting at my kitchen table, phone flat on the surface, screen dark. I kept telling myself I wouldn't touch it, that I'd factory reset it, smash it if I had to. But by noon, my hand was hovering over it like a magnet. I just wanted to see if it was still there, the setting, the shapes, the things that kept showing up when I didn't want them to. I don't know if it was the lack of sleep or the gnawing dread in my chest, but I started to wonder, were they always there? Was this thing showing me something new, or something that had always been around me, just out of sight? I cracked. I punched in the code. Asterisk hashtag 616 hashtag. Spectral filter, active. The kitchen looked the same, until I turned the camera toward the hallway. There was a figure in the doorway, leaning out just enough that half its head poked into the frame. It looked like a kid. Hair matted, eyes wide and milky, mouth hanging slack. Its body was lost in the darkness, but I could see the shape of its fingers curled around the doorframe, gripping it tight enough that the tips seemed to blur. I lowered the phone. Empty hallway. Raised it again. The kid was closer, now standing fully in the doorway, head tilted to the side like it was studying me. I felt my throat close. I don't have kids. I don't even like them. But this thing looked so familiar, like a photo I couldn't quite place. Some old family picture tucked away in a box I'd never opened. I shut the phone off. I told myself that was it. I'd had enough. I put it in the drawer, buried it under old mail and dead batteries and rubber bands. I'd buy a new one. A dumb phone, maybe. Something without cameras and secret menus. But that night, lying in bed, I heard it vibrate. I didn't even remember turning it back on. But there it was, a dull, persistent buzz from the kitchen drawer. I lay there frozen, covers pulled up to my chin, counting the seconds between each vibration. I tried to tell myself it was a notification, some glitch. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Eventually, I couldn't take it. I got up, feet cold against the kitchen tile. The drawer was half open. The phone was lying on top of the mess, screen up. It was on, and the camera was active, the spectral filter running on its own. I could see myself reflected in the glossy black of the screen, my face stretched and ghostly. And behind me, hovering in the doorway to my bedroom, the kid was there. Closer than before. Smiling, I think. Or maybe its mouth just wouldn't close all the way. I slammed the drawer shut. I unplugged the router, turned off the power strip, did everything I could think of to kill any signal. But the phone stayed on, battery icon flickering like a heartbeat. The next day, I drove to Luis's apartment. He lived on the other side of town, in a building that used to be an old mill. I knocked so hard my knuckles went raw. He opened the door in sweatpants, eyes bleary. I must have looked like hell. Jesus, you okay? I didn't answer. I just shoved the phone at him. Break it. Smash it. I don't care how. Just get rid of it. He took it from me, turned it over in his hands. He didn't turn it on. Smart. He grabbed a toolbox from under his sink and went out back to the concrete patio behind his building. I followed him, arms wrapped tight around myself. He laid the phone on a flat rock, picked up a hammer, and brought it down. Once, twice, 3 times. The screen cracked, then shattered, spiderwebbing under the blows. He pried the back off, ripped out the battery, smashed that too for good measure. When he was done, there was nothing left but glass shards and bits of circuitry. He scooped it into a plastic bag and tossed it in the dumpster. You good now? He asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. I wanted to believe I was. I wanted to believe that destroying the phone would fix everything. But that night, back in my apartment, I woke up to a soft glow in my bedroom. At first, I thought it was the streetlight outside, but it was too cold, too pale. My old phone, the one I'd smashed, was lying on my dresser. Whole. Intact. Screen on. The spectral filter was active. I didn't go near it. I pulled the blankets over my head and stayed there until dawn, heart hammering like it wanted to punch through my ribs. When I finally peeked out, the phone was gone. The dresser was empty. I searched the whole apartment. Nothing. I tried to tell myself it had been a nightmare, that stress was eating holes in my brain. But that morning, while brushing my teeth, I glanced at the mirror and nearly dropped my toothbrush. There, on the edge of the counter, was my phone. The same cracks from where Louise smashed it, but the screen was bright. Open to the camera app. The spectral filter was on, and my reflection was there, and behind me, that kid stood in the shower, its head peeking around the curtain. I stumbled back so hard I slammed into the wall. The phone slipped off the counter and landed face up on the tile. The filter flickered. For a second, the kid was gone, just my bathroom, empty. Then it flickered back, and the kid was closer to the mirror, almost pressed up against the glass. I grabbed a towel, threw it over the phone like that would help. It didn't stop the buzzing. The thing wouldn't shut up, vibrating every few seconds like a heartbeat, reminding me it was still there. I stuffed it in a plastic bag and buried it in the trash chute outside my apartment. That was 3 days ago. Since then, I've seen it everywhere, but not just the kid. More shapes. An old man in the stairwell of my building. A woman crouched under my kitchen table. They flicker in and out, like they're stuck between frames of reality. Sometimes I think I can hear them, a soft static hiss when the room should be silent. And the worst part? I don't need the phone to see them anymore. They're just there, watching. I wish I could tell you I was brave, that I faced whatever this is with some shred of courage. But I didn't. I did what I've always done. I buried my head, told myself it'd stop if I ignored it. I sealed the trash chute, taped the flap shut so I wouldn't have to think about that phone rattling in the darkness. I unplugged my TV, turned my mirrors to face the wall. I even taped over the camera on my laptop. None of it mattered. Every night, I still feel them. The air in my apartment hums like an old TV left on a dead channel, faint, just enough to make your skin crawl. It's inescapable. Sometimes I catch glimpses without wanting to, like the time I went to the bathroom at 3 in the morning and saw the kid again. He was standing right behind me in the hallway mirror. But when I spun around, the hall was empty. When I looked back at the glass, there he was, face pressed so close his forehead left a damp, foggy smear. Luis doesn't answer my calls anymore. I can't blame him. I don't even want to know what he saw when he smashed that phone. Maybe this thing latched onto him too. Maybe it needs more than one pair of eyes. I tried talking to a shrink. Just once. I didn't even tell him the whole story, just hinted that I'd been seeing things, that I thought maybe I needed medication, a sleep study, something. He asked me if I'd been under stress lately. I almost laughed. I wanted to ask him if he ever punched asterisk hashtag 616 hashtag into his phone. But when he started suggesting a short stay for observation, I got out of there fast. The worst was last Thursday night. I woke up to the static hum, louder than ever, vibrating the walls. My apartment felt colder than it should have, like I'd left a window open in the middle of January. I lay there frozen under my blanket until I heard it, a soft scraping sound, like fingernails dragging along drywall. I tried to tell myself it was the pipes. Old buildings groan all the time, right? But then I heard footsteps, light, padding steps, too soft to be an adult, too careful to be an animal. I pulled the blanket down just enough to peek toward my bedroom door. The hallway was pitch black, but in the dark, I saw movement, a small shape, crawling on all fours. I thought it was the kid again, but as it dragged itself closer, I saw it was different. The limbs were too long, the joints bending backward, like they'd never learned to move the right way. I didn't have my phone, didn't need it. The thing crawled right to the edge of my bed, stopped, and rose up, its neck cracking as it straightened. For a moment, I could see its face, a smear of static, like a TV channel you can't quite tune in. And then I heard it breathe. My mind shut down. I don't remember passing out. I only remember waking up at dawn, drenched in sweat, my sheets twisted around me like a shroud. The thing was gone, but the air still tasted like burnt dust. I knew I couldn't stay. I threw everything I could into a backpack, clothes, my laptop, my wallet. I didn't even grab my toothbrush. I just needed out. I drove. No plan, no destination. Just miles of cracked highways and my eyes darting to the rear view every 10 seconds, half expecting to see that kid sitting in my back seat. I ended up 3 towns over, at a cheap motel that smelled like mildew and stale cigarettes. But it was empty. That's what I needed, space. Somewhere they wouldn't follow me. For a while, it worked. I slept. No static. No whispers. No shapes flickering in the corners. Just me and the hum of the ice machine outside my door. Then the phone showed up again. It was on the nightstand when I woke up. The same cracked spider webbed across the screen, the same ghostly glow. And this time, it was unlocked. Open to the camera, spectral filter running. It was pointed at me, and on the screen, right behind my shoulder, was the kid. Closer than ever, his face inches from mine, mouth stretched into a grin that looked carved from static. I screamed. Threw the phone at the wall so hard it dented the cheap drywall and clattered to the carpet. But when I went to pick it up, it was gone again, just a black burn mark where it had been. I started sleeping with the lights on, but it doesn't help. They're here, too, in this grimy room, in the stains on the wallpaper, in the buzzing of the neon sign outside. The shapes don't need the phone anymore. They sit at the foot of my bed, sometimes crouch by the bathroom door. Sometimes they just stand there, waiting, watching. The front desk lady must think I'm nuts. I asked her 3 times if she'd seen anyone come into my room. She said no. She offered to move me to a different room, but I told her it wouldn't matter. Because it wouldn't. This morning, I made a decision. I need to know what this is. I can't keep running. They'll follow me anywhere. I don't know how, but they do. So I went online, back to that same curse thread where I first saw the code. It's gone now, or at least, it looks like it. The user who posted it deleted their account, wiped every trace. But I dug deeper, used an old forum archive site. Turns out, someone else had asked about the asterisk #616 hashtag code years ago. Buried in the replies was a name, Project Echo. It's some kind of urban legend, a ghost setting. A diagnostic mode built into certain phone models by accident, or maybe on purpose, depending on who you ask. Some say it was used by developers to test camera overlays. Others claim it was part of a secret experiment, a way to detect electromagnetic echoes left behind by the dead. Most people on those old forums laughed it off. But there was one post that made my stomach drop. A guy said he used the code, too. He wrote that once you see them, they see you back. That the filter doesn't just show you the dead, it's a door. A door that swings both ways. I don't know if I believe all that, but if it's true, I need to find someone who knows more before they cross through for good. Finding answers turned out to be harder than I thought. The more I searched for Project Echo, the more dead ends I hit. Old threads with missing posts. Archived pages with broken links. It felt like every time I got close, something or someone had scrubbed it clean. I holed up in the motel for 3 days straight, curtains drawn, the only light coming from my laptop screen. The static hum was with me constantly now, sometimes soft like a whisper, sometimes so loud it made my teeth ache. I could feel them watching from the corners, little flickers in my peripheral vision, just out of reach. Every so often I'd glance at the bathroom mirror and see the kid standing behind the shower curtain, or the woman crouched under the sink, her eyes wide and empty. I started leaving my phone in the motel dumpster, but it didn't help. It always found its way back, lying on the carpet by the door when I woke up, the spectral filter flickering like a dying light bulb. I smashed it again. Twice. It didn't matter. One night, around 2 a.m., I got desperate enough to post on an old fringe tech forum. I wrote everything, the code, the filter, the shapes I kept seeing. I didn't expect a real answer. I figured I'd get laughed off the board. But an hour later, I got a DM. User, Echo_sleeper. You shouldn't have used that code. Where are you now? I hesitated. Was it a prank? But something about that name made my gut twist. I replied anyway. Small town outside Denver. Motel on the edge of the highway. He responded almost instantly. Meet me tomorrow. There's a diner across from the gas station. 3 p.m. Don't bring the phone. I didn't sleep at all. I kept imagining I'd open my eyes and find the kid standing over me, or worse, that I'd look out the window and see my reflection smiling at me from the glass. At 2:30 p.m., I walked across the cracked asphalt parking lot and crossed the highway to the diner. It was a dump, a squat, greasy spoon with flickering neon signs and chip booths that smelled like burnt coffee. A TV in the corner was playing an old infomercial, the volume turned down so low it just blended into the hum in my head. I ordered black coffee I didn't want and waited. At exactly 3 p.m., A man slid into the booth across from me. He was older than I expected, late 40s, maybe early 50s, with deep lines under his eyes and a nervous way of glancing over his shoulder every few seconds. He wore a faded hoodie, the sleeves pushed up to reveal wrists covered in pale scars. "Are you Echo_Sleeper?" I asked. He flinched at the name. "Don't say that here," he hissed. His voice was raw, like he hadn't spoken in days. He leaned in, eyes darting to the other customers. "Did you bring it?" I shook my head. "I left it in the dumpster." He gave a hollow laugh. "Won't matter. Not now." I stared at him, waiting for him to say more. When he didn't, I blurted it out. "What is this? Project Echo? The code? Why do I keep seeing them?" He rubbed his eyes with the heels of his hands. For a second, he looked like he might cry. "It was never meant for people like you. Or me." I leaned in. "Who was it for, then?" He let out a breath that smelled like stale cigarettes. "It started as a military contract. Early 2000s. Some think tank thought they could map electromagnetic residue. You know, what people call ghosts. They wanted to track it. Use it. Control it." "Control what?" "The echoes," he whispered. "That's what they are. Pieces of us left behind. But once you see them, they see you back. It's like shining a flashlight in a dark room. They don't know you're there until you point it at them." I felt my stomach twist. "So what now? How do I turn it off?" He looked at me then, really looked. His eyes were glassy, bloodshot. "You don't. There's no off. The filter isn't just on your phone anymore. It's in you. Once your brain learns to see the frequencies, you can't unsee them." I shook my head. "That's insane." "Is it?" He pulled a battered old phone from his pocket, an ancient flip phone, held together with duct tape. He flipped it open and showed me the cracked screen. It was dead. I haven't owned a smartphone in 10 years. Doesn't help. I wanted to get up. I wanted to run. But my legs felt like stone. So what do I do? Just live like this. He leaned back, eyes drifting to the window. Outside, the gas station's flickering sign buzzed in the dusk. They're drawn to certain people. People who poke at the dark. People who can't leave well enough alone. I swallowed hard. Like me. He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a scrap of paper from his hoodie pocket and slid it across the table. On it was an address, some rundown house on the outskirts of town. "There's a woman there," he said. "Name's Helen. She knows more than I do. If anyone can help you, it's her. But be careful." "Why?" He smiled, but it was the saddest smile I'd ever seen. "Because once you open the door, some things come through that don't want to leave." Before I could say anything else, he stood up and slipped out the diner's side door, leaving me alone with the cold coffee and the hum inside my skull. I sat there for a long time, staring at that address. Finally, I stuffed it in my pocket, paid the check, and stepped back into the night. Outside, my phone was sitting on the hood of my car. The screen was on. The spectral filter was active. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I sat in my car, engine off, the diner's neon sign flickering in my rearview mirror. Every so often, I'd glance at my phone lying on the passenger seat. I knew if I turned it over, the spectral filter would be there. The shapes would be there, waiting. Around dawn, I made up my mind. I couldn't keep running. I couldn't pretend this would fade on its own. So I drove, out of town, past the empty gas stations and frost-bitten fields, until the sun was a dull gray smear in the sky. The address led me to a neighborhood that looked half-abandoned. Rows of crumbling houses, sagging porches, rusted mailboxes leaning like broken teeth. The house I was looking for sat at the very end of the road, a peeling two-story with boards nailed haphazardly across some of the windows. It felt like it was holding its breath. I parked by the curb and stepped out. The air tasted like rain, but the sky stayed dry. I knocked on the door once. No answer. I knocked again. The boards creaked above me, but otherwise, silence. I was about to give up when I heard it, footsteps inside, shuffling closer. Then the door cracked open. A single blue eye peered out, half hidden by a curtain of gray hair. "You're him," she said. It wasn't a question. I nodded. "Helen?" She sighed and swung the door open. "Well, don't just stand there. They'll follow you." Inside, the house was a maze of books, dusty curtains, and mismatched furniture. Candles burned on every surface, their flames guttering in the stale air. It smelled like old wood and something else, something metallic, sharp. She led me to a cramped living room. On the coffee table sat an ancient CRT monitor hooked up to a tangle of wires and what looked like the gutted remains of 3 different cell phones. The screen glowed with green lines, like a heart monitor from an old movie. Helen sat across from me, knees creaking. Up close, she looked older than I'd thought, face lined like tree bark, hands trembling slightly as she lit another candle. You used the code, she said. I didn't know, I stammered. I thought it was just a diagnostic thing. A trick. She chuckled, but it sounded like choking. Most doors look harmless until they open. I glanced at the monitor. The lines were twitching, forming shapes for a split second before dissolving. The guy who sent me here, Echo_Sleeper, he said you could help, that you know how to close it. Helen's eyes flicked to my phone, which I'd set face down on the table. You're carrying it with you. It keeps coming back, I said. I've smashed it. Dumped it. It doesn't matter. Of course it doesn't. She leaned forward, her breath smelling like stale herbs. You think this is about plastic and circuits? The phone is just the lens. The seeing is in you now. I felt a cold weight settle in my gut. So that's it. I'm screwed. Helen didn't answer right away. She reached for a battered notebook, its leather cover peeling. She flipped through pages filled with scrawled symbols, codes, sketches of figures with blank faces. There's an old ritual, she said finally. Not a cure, a severing. You might not like the price. I leaned in. I don't care. She met my eyes. You should. She stood and shuffled into the next room, returning with a shallow wooden bowl, a box of coarse salt, and an ancient flip phone that looked like it had been buried for years. Sit, she commanded. I did. She poured the salt into the bowl, added a few drops of something black and viscous, then smashed the old flip phone into the mix, grinding it down until the screen cracked into powder. The static hum in my ears intensified, so loud it made my eyes water. Hold out your hands, she said. I obeyed. She pressed her palm to my forehead and began to murmur words I didn't understand. The air in the room thickened, the candle flames bending toward us like they were being sucked into a drain. I felt them then, the shapes. All of them. Not just the kid or the woman under the sink. Hundreds, maybe thousands, crowding into the edges of my mind. I could feel their cold fingers brush against my skin, hear the echo of voices that didn't belong to me. Helen's voice grew louder, sharper. You let them see you. Now you must blind the eye. The static rose to a shriek. I bit down on my lip to keep from screaming. I saw flashes, memories that weren't mine. A hospital hallway lined with figures draped in static. A battlefield littered with echoes screaming into radios that broadcast only the dead. A child's bedroom with a closet that never stayed shut. My phone on the table buzzed once, then twice, then split open along its cracked screen, black smoke spilling out like ink and water. Helen's grip tightened on my hands. Say it, she rasped. Say you do not see. My throat felt raw. I forced the words out. I do not see. Again. Louder. I do not see. The static exploded. The candle flames snuffed out. The bowl in Helen's lap cracked down the middle. For a second, everything went silent. So silent, I thought I'd gone deaf. When the world snapped back, the hum was gone. I opened my eyes. The room was the same, dusty, cluttered, but it felt lighter, cleaner. I looked around. No shapes in the corners. No flickers in the mirrors. Just a house in need of a good sweeping. Helen slumped back in her chair, eyes closed. I thought she'd passed out until she spoke. It's not forever, she croaked. The eye can close, but it remembers. If you look again, if you open the door again. I won't, I said, my voice trembling. She cracked when I opened. Promise me. I promise. Outside, the sky had started to rain, a soft, steady drizzle that felt like absolution. I walked to my car, the broken remains of my phone still smoking in my pocket. I didn't look back. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept. No static. No whispers. No one watching. But sometimes, when I'm alone in a dark room, the TV humming on a dead channel, I think I can still feel them, just beyond the walls, waiting for me to find another code, another setting. And I know one thing for sure. Next time, they won't wait for me to open the door.